So good morning, everyone. Glad that we have our esteemed colleagues from the American University of Cairo. So thank you for visiting us. Today we are just trying to talk about biosaline agriculture and the potential in the future. So today we have 4 speakers on the meeting, and these are from ICBA side is Dionisa Angelique Lira. And Dr. Henda Mahmoudi. So, and from the University of Cairo, we have Mr. Fahad Kimera and Mr. Muzuri Bugambuya. Sorry, I need to get. I just got it. So, so we would like to start saying Dr. Zizi will provide us with the crop sustainable for saline farming implementation, challenges and mitigation practices. Mr. Mahat Kimera will talk about the WEF Nexus, which is what the water energy and food, yes, Nexus models as innovative adaptation strategies for biosaline agriculture. He currently works as a senior manager for the Agricultural Research and Center for Applied Research and Environment and Sustainability at the American University of Cairo. And he is a PhD candidate. So congratulations. Holding an MS master degree in sustainable development and background of agriculture. And his research interests in sustainable agriculture and biosaline production, integrated agriculture systems, agriculture, urban farming areas. So thank you. And then Mugwanya, Dr. Mugwanya, Mr. Mugwanya will be currently is a senior researcher at the Center for Applied Research on the Environment Sustainability at the University of Cairo, and he holds an MSc in biotechnology. So thank you. So with that, we open the floor for the presentation. So who's starting? Cici?
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Augusto, for the opening remarks, and I would also like to welcome the colleagues from American University in Cairo for joining us today for this webinar, and my colleagues as well from ICBA, and also the virtual participants who are joining the webinar today. So my presentation is going to be about crops suitable for saline farming implementation, some challenges that we have observed on practical level about some hurdles, some impediments about the smooth implementation of saline farming, and also some mitigation practices that ICBA has put forward in order to alleviate and overcome these challenges that we have observed. So first of all, some background information. There are some excellent review papers and recent reports actually highlighting the rising of the salinity in the groundwater. So it has been reported that MENA region has 30% of the groundwater resources are saline, and specifically GCC countries, the percentage increases even higher, around 70%. Regarding the soil salinity, there has been a report from the Global Soil Partnership, the soil salinization maps produced in 2021 report, that actually say that 1.5 million hectares of farmland per year go out of production due to soil salinity issues. In addition, in some countries, in some regions where there is plenty of brackish groundwater, or there are issues with potable drinking water and fresh water for supply, for irrigation, for agriculture, there has been desalination technologies installed and implemented all over the world. And we see that there is a hotspot in MENA region where actually 100 million cubic meters per day of the reject brine of this byproduct from desalination from all types of desalination, seawater and brackish inland seawater inland desalination is produced, which means that this is a huge byproduct water for us to tap into for agricultural production. So based on this kind of information that we have in our hands, and also seeing that the soil and water salinity is really aggravating a problematic issue, we have to look for options, for farming options, for crops that can really tolerate a variable level of salinities. So we have so far the agronomists, the breeders, they have in their hands germplasm that is salt tolerant, especially for conventional crops like vegetables, cereals, grains. However, we have a special group that is called halophytic, salt-loving plants, halophytic crops, that can really tolerate very high, much higher salinity levels. So this is a great graph included in this review by Mans Tester in 2008, what it actually shows that as the salinity increases, some crops that we already know, like rice, like barley, like wheat, they can really, their yield, the dry matter, really drops at salinities around or up to 20 or 30 decisiemens, which is 200 millimolar of sodium chloride or 300 millimolar of sodium chloride. So above these salinities, we have this special halophytic group salt-loving plants that can really tolerate these higher, much higher levels of soil and water salinity to tolerate. That means that based on what we have in our plate in order to apply a farming scheme in a specific area where we have specific soil, water, climatic conditions, topographic conditions to address, then we have a wide range of different options where we can select the different crops to apply and to farm. So some of the crops, salt-tolerant ones and halophytic ones that we have evaluated at ICBA under different saline conditions and water treatments, mainly for food and feed, but we are also exploring other uses, are like millets, sorghum, barley, amaranth, potato, rice. For feed, we have buffalo grass, blue panicum, and sorghum as well. Because apart from food, we are also focusing on the feed side, how we can diversify a specific crop to have dual usage purpose. From the halophytic perspective, we have been evaluating quinoa. By the way, quinoa is a facultative halophytic species, so it does not necessarily need salts to grow. But if salts to some extent are there, it can definitely grow well. And Salicornia, it's another species that has multi-purpose usage. And then we have Iceland, Civic, New Zealand spinach, mainly for food purpose. And for feed, we have some halophytic forages like Sporobolus virginicus, Arabicus, Paspalum, and Disticus. So here at ICBA, although we are an applied agronomic institute, we are focusing on the package, on the value proposition, package development. So it's not only to provide the suitable germplasm for specific or for XYZ uses, but also we are providing the best management practices package. How we are going to provide the fertilization, the irrigation, the management, so that we can guarantee a good yield and profit in the end for the farmer. In addition, we are also focusing on the nutritional proposition, on the nutritional value proposition of the crop. So we are exploring the macronutrients, micronutrients, the amino acids, the vitamins, in order to see different growth stages, under different treatments in order to see what is the impact of each factor on the nutritional profile of the crop. The crop has to be profitable. So definitely the return on investment is another factor that the team is exploring, and to see the practices and the attributes that can really leverage the financial aspect of the crop. And last but not least, because the community, the public, the consumers, even the farmers, they are not aware of the potential of this crop, the uses of these salt-tolerant or halophytic crops. So this is another segment that we are also working on intensively to have a proposition in place. Okay, so now I will spend a few minutes for the challenges and the mitigation practices for the challenges that we have been facing. So of course, at ICBA, we have a rich gene bank where we have more than 14,000 accessions. However, some of these, especially for the halophytic plants, there are no varieties in place developed to such extent. Thank you. So that we can, for example, have uniform characteristics in plant height or uniform characteristics in terms of the growth stages that really impede the productivity and profitability in the end. And also we have some new processes, since we are focusing on the market segment as well, that really give a new insight into the value proposition package of the crop, focusing more on how we can really improve this germplasm in order to achieve the steps of the value chain proposition as a whole. So some mitigation actions, first of all, is a breeding program that ICBA has been heavily focusing on for the last 5-10 years. So the breeding program for Salicornia, for quinoa, how we can develop varieties with more uniform characteristics, better uniformity in terms of the growth stages, so that we can reach better yields in the end. Since we've been irrigating these crops with high saline water, with saline water overall, there is this risk of the salinity build up in the soil. So how we can alleviate, how we can make the saline farming more sustainable in the long term is a very important factor to consider to make saline farming approach and farming schemes sustainable and resilient in the long term. Providing the proper leaching fractions, the proper drainage systems. Also, what is the proper irrigation system to apply based on the soil, water salinity factors that prevail in this region. All these factors should be taken into account for the proper decision making. In addition, for some crops that are not that familiar, that the farmers are not familiar with, and there are no specific machines in place in order to increase the yield, the productivity of the crop, like the halophytes, for example, we have to customize and to build these machines from scratch in order to transit to a more automatic, mechanized form of processing, especially for the harvesting process. And this is a photo of harvesting fresh tips of Salicornia in a mechanized way and not manually through workers. The number 2 challenge is that the farmers are not familiar with managing, with cultivating some of these salt-tolerant or halophytic crops. So in this case, we have to develop tailor-made, customized training programs, either in person, of course, hands-on training experience is much more effective, but of course, online programs as well, virtual tools, virtual training programs are also important to serve that purpose. The third challenge is about the consumers. The community overall is not aware of how to utilize, where actually to buy these crops. So we have to build that kind of segment where actually we bring the community closer to these crops so that we can start building the demand for these crops. So at ICBA, and not only at ICBA, NetPro, the Institute for Food and Nutritional Health, established at the University of Cambridge, also the Harvard University, they have established what we call the kitchen lab programs. Also participation in food exhibitions. It's good for a scientist to be part of all these activities that the culinary sector chefs can really bring in. What is the innovation that really can bring on the table through these crops, through these salt-tolerant and halophytic crops. And the third point is that it's very important to involve women and youth in such kind of initiatives. Very recently, we celebrated the Year of Millets here at ICBA. So we had a group of women that really cooked delicious dishes using millets as ingredients. Also, we have run projects in Egypt and Morocco, where the local women cooperatives built and developed products using quinoa, saliconia, really delicious dishes overall. And last, I would like to conclude with this farming scheme that we've been developing here at ICBA, because apart from looking into the standalone crops to be used in these farming systems, in the saline farming context, we also have to integrate, we have to think how we can really leverage the water, food, energy nexus in a system. We are very much familiar about that we have to couple, especially in marginal areas, in hot and dry environments where there is plenty of sun, where there are really limited fresh water and productive lands. We have to bring different components together, this modular kind of farming, in order to enhance the production components and also to utilize the waste within the system and the outputs within the system more effectively. So the circular economy, circular farming is something that is really very much relevant within this type of context, coupling, of course, with solar energy elements. So to conclude, salt-affected areas can definitely be brought back into production through through saline farming approaches. Saline farming by default is a multidisciplinary approach. It's not only that we need the agronomist and that's it. No, we need the agronomist, we need the water expert, we need the soil expert, we need the climate expert. The third point is that customized solutions in terms of crops, the soil and water management can be provided as per the local climatic, soil, topographic, and socioeconomic context. We cannot bring one crop out of the blue in a new region where the community is not ready to accept it or to grow it. The fourth point is that the salt-tolerant halophytic crops have huge potential in terms of uses. Really, there is a big spectrum of crops, and even there are some crops within this pool, the crop pool, that they can have dual or triple purpose of usage. And the last point that I really embrace and really support is that saline farming pushes the boundaries for innovation, either in food, in feed, and also considering an outside of the box approach. So that's it. Thank you very much. For more information, you can visit ICBA's website. And thank you for listening to my presentation.
Mr. Kimera.
Yes, please. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Augusto. Yeah, my name is Fahad Kimero. I am one adjunct faculty and the senior manager for agricultural research at our Center for Applied Research on the Environment and Sustainability. First, I would like to take at least 1 minute, please, to thank Dr. Tarifa, for the generous hosting. And for sure, we have met some of the team here. We have been very much supported, hosted, and the kind reception that we have received. We really appreciate that. It wasn't easy. We have been trying to come to ICBA for so many years, but alhamdulillah, finally we make it. Yeah, thank you so much. We have my colleague, Muhammad Khalid, who is our operations manager, and my colleague, Muzir Mugwanya, who is also gonna be presenting something. So, the previous speaker gave us a very comprehensive background about the challenge of salinity. I'm not gonna go into this, but in my case here, I would like to present something that we are working on in regards to biosalinity mitigation and adaptation. We call it the Wave Nexus model. It's not a new concept, but how do we apply it? How do we design it? How do we implement it? What's unique about us as Center for Applied Research in the American University? So this is our model that actually we work with. It's multidisciplinary, like what Sis said, by salinity or salinity as a global challenge. It's not a unidirectional approach to tackle it. We have to look into different ways, integrated systems and so on. Our system, the WAVE model, in this case has 3 components, which we divide them. I'm gonna show you some components, but here we have like subsystem A, subsystem B, as well as subsystem C. What is subsystem A here? This is using renewable energies. It would be solar, it would be wind. It depends, of course, with the location or the locality where this is being applied. But this is a design that we have worked on for more than 10 years right now, and it can be somehow redesigned to fit a certain locality, but it's a general design that we have made to fit the MENA region. So we use renewable energy. Our center is running, of course, like so many research centers nowadays, running on renewable energy to desalinate salt water. We understand the MENA region doesn't have an issue with water availability. There is water, but is the water suitable? Is it in the good form? Is it in the good quality to be productive, be it for domestic or for crop production? So we have salt water. For the case of Egypt, Egypt in the north, it has a Mediterranean Sea. In the east, it has the Red Sea. In the west, it has the underground salt water. So it has water, but the water isn't suitable. So what's the solution that we are providing? We get this salt water and then we desalinate it. Desalination is not a new concept that we are introducing. It has been available for so many years. And we know so many Middle East countries, they are doing desalination. For Egypt, for example, it has more than 100 seawater desalination plants, huge of them. When you look at UAE, I think it's also getting to 100, maybe between 70 to 100 of the huge desalination plants here, you know? So when you look globally, The Middle East alone, the MENA region, it has more than 50% of the whole desalination plants in the whole world. What does this mean? It takes us to one of the very huge challenges that we are trying to find a solution to water scarcity, but then we are also creating another challenge, which Sisi has already talked about. She said that every single day we are producing 100 million cubic meters of brine. This is huge. It's a huge challenge, more than the challenge that we are tackling. So we are going to see how we deal with this. So this is subsystem A. We have desalination plants. Desalination is still quite expensive. It's known to be expensive because of the energy system, because of the amount of energy that actually goes into this system. But for us, what we are doing is we are trying to develop or investigate different desalination technologies. UAE, for example, it's more common into thermal desalination. Egypt is more common with reverse osmosis technologies. We are tackling this issue using forward osmosis, which is, of course, less energy intensive. We are trying to do a lot of research, some publications we have done into desalination. We have an issue. Desalination has a lot of capital investment. So, and a big part of it is also in the operation, the energy intensity that you put into the desalination. But forward osmosis, we have a technology that is called fertilizer-drawn forward osmosis system. This can be used only for agricultural water production, not for domestic production. Why? Because we are using fertilizers. I wouldn't go so much into the details. We have this paper published. We have so many papers published. I'll just present a few ones. They are available on our website, the Center for Applied Research on the Environment at American University in Cairo. We have tried to see different desalination techniques on how we can reduce the energy intensity, the energy requirements into these desalination programs. That's one of the components. The second component, when we desalinate the water, how do we use this water? We are looking for a solution of salinity that we are facing in the world. When we desalinate this water, we don't actually take this water for domestic usage, it's for crop production. And still, we don't take it to crops. She talked about the integrated system. ICBA is doing a lot of work into integration of aquaculture and agriculture. This is something we have also done. And I think really these are two sister institutions. And thanks for Dr. Tarifa that we have this kind of partnership and we can bring together the expertise so that we can actually work on these solutions together. So when we get this water, we take it to aquaculture and then to the plants. Of course, there are so many publications we have done in this case. Mostly here we are talking about, I will be concentrating on conventional crops. Our previous speaker was talking about the unconventional crops, the halophytic crops, the salt-tolerant crops. Yes, crops need water. We don't have water, but then we need food. 2050, we're gonna be more than 9 billion people. If we talk about the grains, we're gonna need more 60% of additional food in the next few coming years. Vegetables are a very big part of our diets, okay? So for us, what we are doing is that when we desalinate this water, of course, we get the fish first. Of course, also to reduce or to increase the productivity in the system, you have to look at the type of fish, the value of the fish that you're producing in the system. Egypt, for example, on the continent is #1 producer of tilapia. But what is the value of tilapia? What if we go into fish that has more value? We go into fish that is more marketable, internationally. So we did some experiment here. When we desalinated the water, we experimented on some vegetables, Swiss chard, we experimented on tomatoes, experimented on kale, This was also another experiment on cucumber in the greenhouse. So we get the desalinated water, and then we're trying to see the quality of the water that we are using into the desalination. You can see that we are having the control here that is using the fresh water, And then we have one that has 6 specimens and one for 12. So the plants, at least when we elevated the salinity levels, the plants, the cucumber wasn't that productive. However, it meant that you can grow cucumber in the greenhouse, control the environment, because I'm reducing the stress levels of the environment. Now I have only one challenge that I'm focusing on, which is the salinity. So cucumber can grow on 6. This is what we approved, and we are trying to also go a bit higher in other experiments. Okay. The last component, which is the biggest challenge here, it is the brine. Brine, we produce a lot of brine conventionally. How is brine managed? At our center, we actually, in the conventional ways, brine is normally disposed back to the sea. I desalinate from the sea, and then I feed it back to the sea. Honestly, if you look at the loop, it doesn't make any sense. Because if I'm trying to reduce the concentration of salinity and then I'm adding more concentrate, then this is not making sense. In the long run, yes, the sea is quite huge, and also they take maximum caution to where they deposit. But how about the marine life? How about the living organisms that are there that are already adopted into these systems? So we have done several research on how we can manage this desalination brine. And actually, for our system that I'm trying to present to you right now, we happened to get an award in a competition in COP27. We got an award for the best research concept in the MENA area, which was actually awarded by Prima. So we use this brine for 3 main areas. One is producing algae. We know algae, how important it is. It can be as a fodder for animals, aquatic or non-aquatic. Algae can be used in pharmaceuticals. Algae can be used in food production, the supplementary medications that we eat. These all have the vitamins that actually can be cultivated from algae. The other important thing that I'm talking about is Artemia. Artemia, this is something that we have worked on for some years at the American University in Cairo. It's a very small living organisms, call it the small shrimps. It grows in very, very high saline environments. It's more common, it grows in the US, actually in also other natural habitats, but cultivating it is a challenge. How do I cultivate it? And then it can reproduce and I can sustain it. These are ways that we think we could be able to utilize the brine. Yes, we are trying to go to a zero waste system, which is still not yet achieved. But what we try to do is to make the system a bit more efficient and productive and be more eco-friendly by using this desalination brine. And actually, when we do the algae production and then we grow the Artemia, which is food to feed the young fish or the shrimp, then the waste brine that we get, we can do the last step of evaporation ponds, and then we evaporate all this water. So this is mainly what we are offering at the American University in terms of salinity. Yes, there are some other crops that I've not talked about. The fact that my colleague already talked about, we have seen the sorghum, the millet, the panicum, and all these types of plants, which are very, very future crops for the region. In my conclusion, this is the model that we think that would be a very, very significant, paramount, and efficient model for the MENA region, for the fact that we are experiencing a very huge issue of fresh water unavailability. And that's the end of my presentation. This is our main goal. We are trying to use 1 cubic meter of water to diversify yield. We don't care about the quality of the water for the input, be it the brackish water, be it the seawater. We want to desalinate it, and we try to be more efficient and productive as we can to produce high value products that can actually justify the capital and other investments into the systems. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we would like to invite Dr. Henda, please.
Thank you, Dr. Augusto. Thank you, Dr. Tarifa, for being behind all this gathering. It's very nice. I call it as gathering. Happy to see our colleague from the American University in Cairo. I really like the two previous presentations that comes to the very important point and the challenges and opportunities for biosaline agriculture that complement each other. And it brings me to the other component, which is the technology, the innovative technology. My colleagues, they talked about some of them, but I will be focusing on others. Just I want to highlight something to the climate change. We are coming to the COP28. We are talking about the sustainability. This year is the sustainability year at in the UAE. My colleagues from climate change are here. So we know that this effect of climate, specifically on marginal environment, is really giving an alarm. So we have to think about a more solution and see the opportunities that they can use. And that's why we have to focus on the four major pillars. ICBA is focusing on that they are the crops. My colleagues already talked about the crops, the land and water, and the technology that has been used, the novel production system colleagues already talked about, and the data-driven agriculture that I will focus a bit more on that. And they are all connected and they are all providing solutions to the challenges that we are facing. I will not tell more about the alternative crops. It's already mentioned by colleagues, and it's very important to look at underused crops. The needs of better practices for irrigation and for land. Colleagues mentioned about the build of salinity. So the management is the best, it's the key word, how to manage water, specifically when we are using saline water, how to manage it and how to minimize in both ways the use of the fresh water that we are getting out of the desalination. Our novel production system in the marginal environment and ICBA, they started work on this. We have our the integrated system where we want to use the water from the desalination unit in a proper way. We have the technologies that use less resources, like the vertical farming and some of the greenhouses technology, less resources, but it gives more production and maximize the production. All those systems that we are using, we are now in the era of the technologies, the innovative technologies. The artificial intelligence is one of the keywords that it can be used in agriculture, and it can facilitate all these things, and it helps. Colleagues, they mentioned all these things, and at each step of those, we can use the artificial intelligence, and the data-driven agriculture can help facilitate. We were working at ICBA since years on the data-driven agriculture, and colleagues, they worked on several topics, starting from the effect of the climate change and how to detect. And we use the drone. Since 2019, ICBA is using drones and remote sensing data collection that help getting the right picture and how we can tackle it in the proper way. And we are developing an IA-powered solution for data for the date plant detection. We are talking about marginal environment, and one of the crop here is the date palm, and other crops can be tackled to use the IA-powered solution for it. Not only the date palm. I'm giving the example that ICBA is working on. And the sensory system, we are installing in ICBA and in other projects that they are led by ICBA in several countries, in Resade, in several countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, in North Africa, etc. Using the sensors and the system that they can give us. Another thing, they are all powered by solar energy. So coming to this nexus of the energy, so to minimize the use of the energy. What they do, this system, and how they can help. Those systems, they help us to get data from different levels, from the evapotranspiration, the consumption of water by the plant, to the soil level, to a different level, and it can help us to decide on the proper way of irrigation, proper way of fertilization, under saline agriculture and non-saline agriculture. Here we are focusing on saline. It's very important that at the biosaline agriculture, when you're using saline water, we have the right ideas, the right data, so real-time monitoring of our experiment. This is one example of the data we are collecting. And for example, I would just give an example of the result that we got from our fruit tree experiment and how it helped us to see that we need to adjust the irrigation based on the season. Because, for example, marginal environments, not only the salinization problem, is the temperature fluctuation during the year. So it's very important to know how to adjust it based on the season, based on the year, based on the temperature. We're saying that with the climate change, everything is changing. Suddenly we have increase, decrease. All of us, we are seeing this. Other usage, and very important for the agriculture, is the IEA part applications. And ICBA works on those tools since years. And one of the example is the IEA part application for detection of plant disorders in some crops, which was launched recently, thanks to the support of the management. Other IEA part tools are mobiles are being prepared by ICBA for the crop management, for the soil management, for the water management. It is really important to use the new generation, what they call it, language. The artificial intelligence is really a new tools, and it helps. It's really helped not only at the level of the farmer, at the different level, even the researcher. We can see that the previous year, when we had the problem of COVID, these virtual things are very supported. Really, our research supported us how to provide the information. My colleague Sisi, she showed the example of the virtual training that we conducted through the project for the future for the farmer. I can see that we can provide more tools that they are powered by the artificial intelligence to help farmer in agriculture, from explaining to them how challenging is this crop and how beneficial are these crops, till how they manage it for the entire value chain that my colleagues showed previously. To finish, this is one of the ICBA product, the Dr. Nabat that was being launched. With this, I thank you, and thank you very much for the opportunity. And thank you again for the management for getting this partnership. This is what we really look for at ICBA, the partnership that help us provide more, give more incentive to many countries, not only in UAE. Thank you very much.
Okay, and our last speaker is Uzuri. All right.
Last but not least.
Last but not least. Right. Look, ponies.
Thank you so much. My name is Magonya Muzre. I'm a senior researcher at the Center for Applied Research on Environment and Sustainability, the American University in Cairo, and I'm really happy to be here. My previous colleague has talked about innovative technologies in biosaline agriculture, and in almost all cases, when you talk about biosaline agriculture, we focus more on plants compared to other food production systems like aquaculture. So my presentation here will be mostly on aquaculture and a few examples of an integrated system where we integrate aquaculture and agriculture. So the freshwater scarcity in Egypt has forced this country to turn to other alternative water sources. The sea, Mediterranean Sea, the Red Sea, as well as underground water for the production of different fish species. But as we may know, Egypt has invested a lot of money in growing freshwater species that are not yet adaptable to saline conditions. So what we have done at CARES is to adapt certain fish species to high salinity. For example, we have been able to adapt tilapia to high salinity, and the fish grows well to around 15,000 parts per million of salinity. We have adapted catfish to the same salinity levels, and we have tried to also assess the growth performance of fish under such highly saline conditions. Not only the growth performance, we also look at the immunity of the fish, the health status of the fish, looking at certain indicators such as the concentration of white blood cells, red blood cells, platelets. All these indicators try to tell us whether the fish is suffering or it's trying to adapt well in its environment. However, aquaculture has its, adapting fish through the traditional aquaculture techniques has its own challenges, okay? Because sometimes we keep on changing water more frequently to maintain the quality of the water and so on and so forth. So we try to include another type of technology here to maximize the production of fish. This technology is called biofloc technology. It's not so much different from the traditional aquaculture production system, but in this kind of technology, we add carbon sources. Carbon sources, it could be starch from agricultural wastes, or it could be simple sugars like molasses or even black honey. So we add these carbon sources into the aquaculture unit for one reason: to increase the production of certain bacterial species that are going to clean up the water. These bacterial species will help to transform the toxic forms of nitrogen to a less toxic form of nitrogen. But we have to be very careful with the ratios. And according to previous research, the carbon nitrogen ratio should be around 12 to 1 or 10 to 1, above which it could damage the system. It would also have an issue with fish performance. So this is biofloc technology that we have initiated at CARES to help us improve the productivity of fish under saline conditions with less water exchange, as well as less input into the system. We have also integrated the biofloc technology with crop production. Okay, and from this slide, you can see that water from the fish tank is directed to the hydroponic unit to produce halophytic plants. And then water comes back to the fish tank. So within the fish tank, we have the microorganisms that are purifying the water. And then water goes to the hydroponic unit. And this water contains nutrients, which the plant will use to grow. And then water is channeled back into the fish tank. But this system also has a problem, because the accumulation of microorganisms that we call flocks, okay, could block the root system of the plants. And this will this will result into poor performance or poor growth in the hydroponic units because the plant roots have been blocked. They cannot absorb water, they cannot absorb nutrients. Okay, and apart from that, these flocks are very important as an alternative fish feed. So if we have most of the flocks trapped into the hydroponic units within the plant root zone, okay, these flocks will not be able to return to the fish tank to act as an alternative protein source for the feed, for the fish. So this system has its own problems. And then this other system, known as the on-demand decapod system, we have two systems that are working together, but at the same time independent. So once water leaves the fish production unit, it goes to what we call a sedimentation tank to separate the flocks from the water, and then we have water flowing to the hydroponic unit to grow the plants. So it's a single system, but each system, the fish tank as well as the hydroponic units are working independently. So in such a case, in this case, most of the flocks that would suffocate the plant roots are trapped in the sedimentation tank, and we only obtain water from the sedimentation tank and channel it to the hydroponic unit, and then we can obtain the flocks that have been trapped in the sedimentation tank and bring them back into the fish tank to act as an alternative feed. So this system, one, will reduce the input when it comes to the fish feed costs, okay? Because one of the most expensive component of aquaculture is the feeding. They're like the fish feeds are very expensive. So if we have utilized these flocks as an alternative feed for the fish, this will lower the costs of production. And also these flocks, due to the fact that they contain a lot of microorganisms, the beneficial bacteria, the beneficial microalgae, these flocks also stimulate the immune system of the fish. Once the immune system of the fish has been stimulated, the fish will easily adapt to any environmental condition we subject it to. High salinity, low oxygen, and so on and so forth. But what you have to know is that not every species can do well in this kind of system, because with limited exchange of water, we have high turbidity and maybe low oxygen concentrations in the system. So specific fish species have to be cultivated, have to be cultured in such a system. Fish species such as tilapia, these fish species can quickly and adapt to such conditions. Shrimp can also adapt quickly to such conditions. And then we have other lower fish species such as the mullets. These can also adapt to such conditions. Within the system, we can also do what we call polyculture, growing more than one fish species into the same tank. But you have to be careful, because you have to introduce another species that will not cause competition with the other species. And the species that you are trying to introduce into such a system, it should be able to consume the waste product of another fish as a food source. Although some people don't want to hear about this, unfortunately. But there are fish species such as tilapia and the mullets that can consume the waste of other fish as a food source. And these species do not with the primary species that we are trying to grow, and the two species can survive harmoniously within the same environment. And then to the hydroponic units, halophytic plants can grow well. We can also adapt some other plants that are not halophytes, but we can adapt them to saline conditions. And in carriers, we have done this. We have adapted certain plants to saline conditions. As my friend Fahad mentioned, we have grown cucumber at salinity concentration of around 6 decimins per meter. Cucumber is moderately or slightly tolerant to saline conditions, but with our results, it was able to grow well under such harsh environments. Thank you so much, and this is what I have.
Thank you. Okay, so before we wrap up the meeting, we have our colleague Mohammed, who's going to talk about the administrative part of.
So I will just take a few seconds, of course, to express my sincere gratitude for our partnership with Dr. Tarifa. And on behalf of Dr. Henny Sweden, I would love to thank you for your kindness and hosting us. And of course, we're planning for the new projects, and we hope that we continue our collaboration in the areas of research, of course, as you suggested, and other areas in the community development in Egypt and the region as well. Thank you very much.
For sure. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, so we have just 1 minute to sort of wrap up the discussion. I think it was clear the complementarity between the two groups. So whereas ICBA is working on the plant side and trying to, to maximize the production of halophytic plants, our colleagues at the American University of Cairo are looking into the production of the protein, fish and animals into the brine, which is complementary to what we do. So I think the working together will be very beneficial to the two teams, and the complementarities are there. The collaboration can be established. So I think it's a plus from my side. So I don't know if from the audience they have any questions or any remarks that you would like to make before we close the session. So welcome, please, to do. Please, Dr. Ahmed.
Welcome to Dubai.
Thank you.
I have a question for the American University. I would like to ask about the potential for commercialization. Do you see that at this stage, like still early, or what kind of challenges you see for commercialization?
Yes.
Such systems.
Thank you so much. It's quite a significant question. Yes, commercialization, of course, we are a center of applied research. Whatever research we do, we have to put the applicability into consideration. So we do the pilot, we do the applied research first, and then we pilot it on a semi-commercial scale. And then actually we go out into the field for commercial scaling also. We do this through our community engagement projects. So whatever research that we have validated, we take it into the communities for upscaling and also demonstration to the farmers. Yeah, so sometimes, yes, between a research and commercialization, there is a very huge challenge there. However, we try, the way we conduct our research, we try to make sure that we overcome this challenge, we overcome this problem. So whatever research we validate, we have to make sure ourselves first that it's applicable on a bigger scale. Yes.
And how far you are from
How far?
Yes, for this system to be like adapted by private sector.
Yes, for example, we started actually 10 years ago, we started with a bench scale system of desalination for water osmosis. Then we went to like this room of a pilot scale, size of this room. And then we went to triple this room, which is a semi-commercial scale. We went into phases. So right now with that system, we are in between, we finished the semi-commercial scale. Now we are going to the full scale in the field. So we went phase on phase on phase testing. Yeah.
So any other question? So
I have a question to the, just like you about adaptability of certain plants to salinity. I mean, are you doing breeding things or how? I mean, what?
No, we're not breeding per se, but we try to expose these plants to different ranges of salinity, and then we mitigate the stress effects with maybe application of plant growth regulators through folio sprays. We could also use beneficial microorganisms to support the plant under such conditions, but we haven't reached this stage of breeding plants.
It was, yeah, that's very right. I think it's a very good point. It is not adapting the plants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are trying to test
the limits.
Yeah, what limit their growth limits or the survival, and then how we can ameliorate these stress factors.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Augusto, we have a couple of questions from the attendees online. If we could just address them as well, please.
If the people attending online can please.
We have the first question.
I cannot see it from here, sorry.
Yeah, okay, I can read that out. It says,
Freddy's.
I think from Freddy's Galaxy S. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, it's a mobile phone. It says, great overview. Is ICBA involved in any pilot projects in Egypt or looking for partnerships? How do we get involved? Thanks, Fadi Gurgiz. Yeah, Fadi Gurgiz. Yeah, that's a question. I think it's maybe, it's to ICBA. It's a question to ICBA. I don't know, maybe.
Yes, of course. Yes, we had a huge project in ICBA, and we are still following on those projects, like the quinoa value chain, the work that we did with them on we introduced it. We did a lot of capacity building in Egypt for the use of the IE part application and how it helped the extension services and the farmer there for the early detection of diseases. And we are still following with them on how it is impacting their yield and impacting their income. So this is a follow-up on project. Similar thing for the quinoa value chain. We are still following on the progress and how it is impacting more and more farmer in the New Valley. The other question was about partnership. I mean, ICBA, if I may talk about on behalf of ICBA, if open to any partnership. One of the example is our partnership with the AUC, and so if there is ideas of project or something that ICBA can implement, we welcome any partner to contact the management, and we can decide on it.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Fonda. I think the second question is, why are you using practices zero tillage, high bed range to overcome the salinity issues? Why can we not use acidic fertilizer to reduce salinity? I'm not sure who this question is addressed to be honest. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, actually,
you can come here.
It's okay.
Really?
I'm not aware if we actually have right now projects on zero tillage. I'm not sure. Yeah, it plays important role in plant tolerance to salts and how salts accumulate in the soil. So, in a way, I mean, with zero tillage, we really use salt interaction in the atmosphere. So, but of course, it depends on the soil type, soil texture, and soil. So, zero tillage cannot be applied all over. And regarding the second part about the fertilizers, I think the fertilizers they are already used, especially in Egypt, to clean the fertigation networks. But they don't solve the salinity problems. I mean, if we have like salt-affected soils or alkaline soil, we can use gypsum, but not acidic.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. I think the third question is, what kind of crops can be used in the coupled flockponics other than leafy greens? I guess this is.
Okay. All right. Yes, yeah, it's most of the studies when it comes to coupled flockponics, they report about leafy vegetables. But there are certain field crops that we could grow in coupled flockponics, and some of these there is what we call forage sorghum, rice and barley. These crops can be grown in coupled flockponics systems.
Thank you very much, Uziri. And
Would the presentation be available? Yes, we'll try to make sure that the video of the webinar is available online on our YouTube channel, so you can access all the information from there. And then the question is interested to know more about alternate crops or underused crops in the UAE. Huh?
Collaboration with Turkey.
Collaboration.
Yeah, I think this is more of yeah, we can do it's more of a statement, I understand. Yeah, so it's not.
Also interesting, I mean, as a kind of something to explore, because if there is a kind of microorganism that can really be utilized for salinity and alleviate, somehow the salinity, then we really have a case.
So if you would like to address it, yes, please. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, so I don't know who is this anonymous attendee, but of course you can approach us through the website. So we have different email addresses, or we can probably, I don't know which email address, probably from the partnerships, we can type the answer here, the email address. So Noor, can you just write your email address? So we can consider a partnership, a potential kind of project to run together. So my colleague now is typing the email address, so you can email to us for this topic.
Yeah.
And now about the alternative crops or underutilized crops in UAE. In my presentation, I showed a wide range of crops that we've been growing here at ICBA. Cereals, grains, fruit trees, sorghum, millets. Of course, not locally indigenous crops, but most of them are introduced here. However, they can really grow in this hot and very dry climate. I'm sure if we post the presentations, then the participants can really have access to these presentations. So you can have, Yasmin, so you can actually have more detail. We are providing more details in the presentation that I just showed earlier. And of course, you can contact us, you can access our website. Again, you can email us for more information. None of you.
Okay, so then there's one more question from another anonymous attendee. Any hope on the nanoclay and water saving in the UAE? I think this is for you, Dr. Ahmed.
We have done one experiment on nanoclay, but we don't want to limit the answer to nanoclay. I think the whole issue of nanofertilizers and nanoparticles are potentially useful in agriculture and fertilization because really improves the efficiency of nutrient uptake and make it possible to target plant uptake sites. So yeah, we think that it's really a potential technology. It still needs a lot of research, especially in terms of the safety for human beings, for human uptake of these nanoparticles. But so it's still under research, but I mean, in terms of, we think it's useful to apply. I mean, applying clay in general, in sandy soil, for example, or light temperature soil would be very useful because we know that clay improves the properties of the sandy soil.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to also compliment on one of the online attendees who was talking about the fungus. There are some basic research that has been already conducted. We at AIRS, we are also actually going into this line already. There is some fungus and bacteria that can somehow, but this has not yet been fully validated, somehow reduce the salinity level of the soil in a biosaline environment. You know, it's the way you design to complement the fungus with the bacteria together. You know, so it's available, but a lot of there is no huge research or significant research that has been done into this area because it is still facing some challenges, some issues into the system. But yeah, it's a nice avenue to venture in. We are doing it. And I was also planning to talk about it in our next research meeting, which would be maybe one way that we can try to build it, but it's still very on a very low scale.
I mean, if I may add to it, we tried some endophytes. We had experiment on endophytes on wheat and barley. We tested for how it improved the crop performance, tolerance to salinity and drought. It showed very nice result for the drought and meaningful as well result for the salt for the wheat and barley, and it has been published. And we are working on the interaction of endophytes. We are not okay. We didn't check it the soil, how it affect the soil, but how it improve
the crop.
The crop tolerance to salinity and drought.
Amazing.
So it's one of area of collaboration. We worked on that with the cows, and we had a very nice publication out of it.
Amazing.
And we have collaboration with Zaid University on that as well. Yeah.
Why not we can further this, I think this research as one of the lines of mitigation and adaptation.
Okay, thank you very much. I think.
Thank you for your presence and for your patience. So with this, we close the session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
This was great. Thank
Okay,
you.
very
Thank
good.
you.